North Carolina on Monday evening.
Senior hurricane specialist Dan Brown of the National Hurricane Center. Tropical storm warnings are in effect as far north as Virginia. Still no agreement on another coronavirus relief bill after talks on Saturday involving Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and top White House advisors. Senator Schumer speaking with reporters on Sunday, emphasizing the need for federal relief.
We have to renew the unemployment insurance, and not just for a week, but for a long period of time, at the level that is fair and right, the $600.
More talks on a new package are expected Monday. An American spacecraft landing via splashdown Sunday for the first time in 45 years.
Splashdown.
As you can see on your screen, we have visual confirmation for splashdown.
SpaceX copies and concurs. We see splashdown and mains cut.
Dragon Endeavour has returned home.
That audio courtesy of NASA TV. Astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken aboard the SpaceX Dragon capsule, hitting the Gulf of Mexico off the coast of Pensacola, Florida, after spending 2 months on board the International Space Station. Talks now underway between Microsoft and the China-based parent company of video sharing app TikTok for Microsoft to purchase the service for operations in the U.S., Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. The Trump White House alleging that TikTok poses a national security risk, it says, results from user data being sent to the Chinese Communist Party. The company denies that. America's listening to Fox News.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña and Tumon are now open for takeout and free delivery services in selected locations. For more information, call 479-2652 or 3 or 969-2652. Open Monday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comforts of your own home. They take your favorite local dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
Hafadade, this is Carl from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future. Whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community, our dedicated team in Guam and on the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
The White House urging Americans again to wear face masks during the COVID-19 pandemic.
The White House Coronavirus Task Force maintains that as states try to reopen, limiting exposure risks, such as crowded indoor dining, is important. But Assistant Secretary for Health Admiral Brett Giroir says on NBC's Meet the Press, one strategy remains the most effective.
Wearing a mask is incredibly important, but we have to have like 85 or 90% of individuals wearing a mask and avoiding crowds. That is essentially gives you the same outcome as a complete shutdown.
Giroir says while it's debated whether people will comply with or rebel against a federal mask mandate, voluntary compliance is needed to make a difference. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
A wildfire east of Los Angeles in California's Riverside County, scalding over 31 square miles of dry brush and timber so far with zero containment. One home and 2 outbuildings have been destroyed. No injuries reported. The cause of the blaze still under investigation as dangerous heat is forecast to continue in the area. The search for missing Marines and a sailor has been called off.
Facing up to a harsh reality, those 7 U.S. Marines and 1 sailor who went missing after the amphibious assault vehicle they were in sank off the California coast last week are now presumed dead. The Marine Corps announcing Sunday that the search has been called off. The troops are taking part in a training exercise near San Clemente Island, west of San Diego, when the 26-ton tank-like craft sank in hundreds of feet of water. 8 other Marines were rescued, though 1 later died and 2 are listed as critical. The Marine Corps has suspended waterborne operations involving that type of vehicle until the cause of the sinking is determined. Karen McHugh, Fox News.
India reporting nearly 55,000 new coronavirus cases, and Japan recording more than 1,500 additional cases. A curfew also imposed on Australia's second biggest city, Melbourne, following a spike in cases there. I'm Paul Stevens, and this is Fox News.
Hi, welcome to to Chili's.
We have lunch selection starting at $9. Choose from a variety of mouth-watering entrees like our old-timer with cheese, ranchero chicken tacos, or the half-rack baby back ribs. All lunch selections are served with a refreshing bottomless Coca-Cola beverage. Experience the bold flavors at a great price with Chili's lunch selection starting at $9. Available Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Located in the Two Monsignors Plaza, second floor. Chili's, savor the moment.
GRMC's cardiology department treats most complex heart problems. In our catheterization lab, cardiologists use imaging equipment to treat clogged arteries that can cause heart attacks or heart failure. We perform balloon angioplasty, stenting, and other life-saving cardiac procedures. If you suffer from a heart condition, have your provider refer you to GRMC's cardiology clinic at 645-5500. GRMC, where patients are partners.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 66 years. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is also brought to you by Security Title, making sure you actually own the property you think you just bought.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, and as I remind you from time to time, the Second Amendment is part of what we refer to as the Bill of Rights, all of which are important. And as a reminder of the importance of the Bill of Rights, I start the program with the Second Amendment every day, occasionally drifting to other parts of the Bill of Rights and the United States Constitution. Today is one of those days. So I've got a couple of pieces that I want to read into the record here. One from a guy named Gene Veith, who writes at a website called Pathos. And he has an interesting article called Revising the Bill of Rights. And it's kind of shocking in a way. A majority of Americans, 51%, want to revise the First Amendment to reflect the cultural norms of today. Specifically, they want the freedom of speech guarantee to be rewritten so as not to allow, quote, hate speech. Nearly 60% of millennials report such revision. This was a finding of a poll conducted by the Campaign for Free Speech. Nearly 48% of the respondents believed that, quote, hate speech should be illegal, with half of those saying it should be punished by imprisonment, with the rest saying it should be punished by fines. The study did not define, quote, hate speech, but the term is regularly used today to shut down debate on a whole range of issues. If you call for enforcing the country's immigration laws, you could be accused of, where is that sound effect? Where is this 19th floor sound effect?
Oh, you could be accused of what, sir?
You could be accused of hate speech. Explain why you don't believe in same-sex marriage. Hate speech. Complain about males who identify as females taking the prizes in women's sports. All definitions of hate speech. It's frightening to think that 48% of the people polled think that it should be illegal, and half of them say it should be punished by imprisonment. Now, if they had their way and the criminal law were enacted in accordance with what the survey found, Tall Tales would be really easy, Real Joe Cruz, because we'd only be on the air for about 10 minutes. And we'd both be in jail after one broadcast.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Hate speech. To say such things as, I think that marriage is one man and one woman, and that it's not possible for Herman and Henry to get married. You could get a piece of paper that says marriage certificate on it, but here we go again, right? That is hate speech. And for me to say that, you know, we've had males who've decided they would rather, that they really, inside them, they really feel like females, so they dress like females. And then they enter into things like track meets, and they just beat the heck out of the double X's in the race because they're bigger, stronger, and faster. Hate speech. But anyhow, it just kind of shows you the times we're living in. So, going on, this article says, are Americans similarly disenchanted with the rest of the Bill of Rights? Some anti-gun activists, encouraged by former Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens, are calling for a repeal of the Second Amendment. According to the poll, 1% of Americans want the constitutional right to keep and bear arms repealed. Now, I don't go into this hate speech kind of rap myself. I don't label things that people say in a country where you do actually have the right to free speech. But if I did, I'd probably say that this thing about repealing the Second Amendment is indeed hate speech. 46% would like to see the Second Amendment revised so as to allow stricter regulation of firearms. Yeah. So a couple other points I want to make here. A piece from PJ Media, leftist rioters, like their Marxist muses, are literal revolutionaries. How do you make sense of the nonstop craziness going on in our society? Is there a common denominator, or is it all happening randomly? Well, it's unlikely that multiple sectors of society just happen to be imploding at the same time without some causal forces behind them. And you don't have to be a garden variety conspiracy theorist to realize that some kind of intelligent design is at work here. I personally think we're in the throes of spiritual warfare, but instead of expanding on that, I'll just address the human agency that might be facilitating this chaos, because human beings are advancing it regardless of whether unseen forces are ultimately behind it. I know of no one who disputes that George Floyd's murder was outrageous and inexcusable. I know of no one who disputed it after seeing the horrible video of the event. President Donald Trump himself condemned it within hours. I also, no one objects to peaceful protests about this horrible incident and others like it. All fair-minded people abhor such misconduct toward anyone. But it is not fair to condemn all cops for the actions of a statistically small minority. And that's like what I was telling you about lawyers the other day, Real Joe Cruz. You remember that? It's so unfair that it's just 99% of the lawyers that give the other 1% a bad name. Yeah. I would hope, however, that we would have more widespread condemnation of rioters, looters, and anarchists who have leveraged racial tension to justify violence in American cities. There is no justification for these violent riots and the explosion of murders and other violence beyond the protest venues. The rioters, by their own admission, are implacable. They have no demands that can be met, short of overthrowing our entire societal framework and constitutional system. Be a lot easier if people didn't have guns, wouldn't it? They're not rioting over slavery, which ended years ago. They're not demanding equal opportunity under the law or advancement of civil rights, which were enacted decades ago. They don't seek dialogue. How can you reason with young white leftists who abuse and assault cops and call African-American cops racist? How do you reason with spoiled, self-indulgent, and sanctimonious malcontents? Think about it. While rioting over alleged white privilege and white racists against blacks, they lecture, malign, and bully blacks. It's tragically surreal. How can you satisfy those who claim that people are guilty of racism by virtue of their race, irrespective of any individual acts of racism? Those accused are given no chance to make their case. There is nothing they can do to acquit themselves because they are convicted as a matter of who they are and not what they've done. And if you go into Robin DiAngelo, who wrote something called White Fragility, the mere fact that someone who was born white would ever come along and say, I'm not a racist, is sufficient proof to show that he is. Because he's denying that he is. Now, of course, if he admits that he's a racist, he's a racist. So, one more paragraph out of this article. It's no surprise that these rioters are either outright Marxist or those Vladimir Lenin called, quote, useful idiots, those who unwittingly advance the cause of Marxism. They think and act like Marxists. Useful idiots. Now, I don't want to say anything about white coats for Black Lives Matter when those doctors and nurses took a knee down in Skinner Plaza for Black Lives Matter. I'm not going to call them useful idiots. I think a kinder term is useful innocence. They didn't know what they were doing. By now, anybody who thinks that's what's going on in these shucks-hole cities like Portland, Seattle, etc., has anything whatsoever to do with George Floyd ought to buy shares in the bridge that connects Manhattan and Brooklyn. One more thing that I want to get into here. It's kind of along the same lines, and it goes to the cancellation culture. A Catholic bishop fired back at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, better known as AOC, on Friday after the freshman lawmaker disparaged a famed Catholic saint. Now, this is also part of it, that there is a very strong anti-Christian feeling and an even stronger anti-Catholic feeling amongst these neo-Marxist looters, rioters, and arsonists. And of course, that squares directly with Marxism, because Marxism's biggest enemy is religion. And the biggest enemy in that class is Catholicism. So here's what Ocasio-Cortez said. While denouncing statues in the U.S. Capitol that she claimed represent colonizers and settlers. That's the worst possible thing you can call someone, a colonizer. You remember how how crestfallen Paul Zerzan was when Hope Cristobal blew the whistle on him and told him that he was a colonizer. Wow, you know, it's just the bottom of the barrel. While denouncing statues in the U.S. Capitol that she claimed represent, quote, counselors and settlers, Ocasio-Cortez singled out St. Damien of Molokai as an example of, quote, white supremacist culture. This is what she said. Even when we select figures to tell the stories of colonized places, that would be Hawaii, it is the colonizers and settlers whose stories are told, and virtually no one else. Check out Hawaii's statute. It's not Queen Liliuokalani of Hawaii, the only queen regent of Hawaii, who is immortalized and whose story is told. It's Father Damien. This isn't to litigate each and every individual statue, but to point out patterns that have emerged among the totality of them and who we are taught to deify in our nation's capital. And I'm going to stop and introduce something parenthetically. Nancy Pelosi wanted 4 speakers of the House of Representatives who happened to be slaveholders. She wanted their statuary removed, which I'd go along with, because all 4 of them, of course, were Democrats. Yeah. Okay, but going back to this, what AOC said, the totality of them and who we are taught to deify in our nation's capital, virtually all men, all white, and mostly both. This is what patriarchy and white supremacist culture looks like. It's not radical or crazy to understand the influence white supremacist culture has historically had in our overall culture and how it impacts the present day. That's what AOC said. The comments left many people scratching their heads, particularly because Damien was an 18th century, as you were 19th century Catholic priest from Belgium who dedicated his life to caring for people with leprosy in Hawaii, even dying from the disease himself. That's really white supremacy. In fact, Damien is an extremely revered person in Hawaiian history. He spoke and preached in the Hawaiian language, and the statue that Ocasio-Cortez denounced is merely a replica of the one found outside Hawaiian State Capitol building. To the Hawaiian people, Damien is considered a hero. Interesting, huh? But not to Ocasio-Cortez. In response, a response video on Friday, Los Angeles-based Bishop Robert Barron called AOC's comments so crazy and outrageous. I would accuse Father Robert Barron of understatement after saying something like that. To associate this man in any way with colonialism or white supremacy is so ridiculous and insulting, it shows the superficiality and simplistic quality of these sort of woke categories, Barron said. He continued, I can't help but think of all the people that could have been singled out. What is it with this attack on Catholic saints? Barron went on to highlight that a statue of Jefferson Davis, the President of the Confederacy, remains in Statuary Hall in the U.S. Capitol. I think what they mean is Statuary Hall, not Statutory Hall. But Ocasio-Cortez still chose to target the statue of Damien. Maybe maybe he's the only one that could be recognized as Catholic. And then Barron says, it's time to get beyond these simplistic categories. And of course, that's the evil of identity politics. It doesn't matter what an individual is, what he did, it doesn't matter what an individual is, what they did, what they're going to do, what their beliefs, it doesn't matter. You put them in an identity group, end of story. So, and then one more thing I add here after this Ocasio-Cortez note, today's news showed that the rioters in Portland have now taken on something else to do. Yesterday, they burned a stack of Bibles. Does this kind of remind you of something, book burning Bibles?
Yeah, Germany.
Yeah. I think it's Drive-Through Jack who reminds us from time to time that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes.
True.
Yeah. Okay, that's the Second Amendment. Let's see who I got on the line here. Probably another joke. Oh, it's Jimmy. All right. You finally opened the Jimmy line.
Jimmy line's open, sir.
All right. Good afternoon, Jimmy.
Oh, hi. Yeah, it just occurred to me that Damien was not only a colonizer, the guy that died of leprosy, that he caught from the Hawaiians, he was also guilty of cultural appropriation.
Because he learned to speak Hawaiian, right?
No, because he caught their diseases.
Oh, that's cultural appropriation in capital letters, Jimmy.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll talk to you later.
Thanks for calling, Jimmy. Yeah, cultural appropriation. He wasn't content with just staying in Hawaii. He had to contract a disease. Let's see. Our Fred is on the line. Okay. Good afternoon, our Fred.
Hey, good afternoon, Bob.
I
wanted to touch base and continue on our conversation last Friday on colonization and all the independence movement you were talking about.
Sure.
Do you recall that?
I do, yeah.
So, and I think you said you agreed with my point. You had the three options: hamburger, cheeseburger, and ribs. Right? I was kidding. So you had we had the two options that were off the table, which we Guam does not qualify for, and the third one was independence.
Right.
I wanted to ask you, with independence, will Guam still continue will Guam still get funded with SNAP programs and Medicaid and all the federal programs that are funding the unfortunate?
No.
Okay.
We wouldn't need those things. We'd be independent.
Yeah. Well, if we get the independence like the three people who want it, will we get our continued SNAP and GURA housing allowances and all that kind of stuff?
No.
Okay. That's probably the number one determination of if the people want independence now. Because the other two we don't qualify for. They're just on the table just to make it look good. So the people of Guam need to understand that if we get independence, we get none of the Uncle Sam benefits that we get as being a territory with status quo.
That's right.
And the individuals that are fighting for independence or these other two options they throw on the table, which don't exist, they're just for some self-interest, self-serving reason, they're either for votes or just to kind of push the movement that, hey, we're doing something for you and something great. We're going to get you independence and have your freedom, whereas we have our freedom. But we're going to get you our freedom and sugarcoat it with the title tomorrow's self-determination, which sounds so good, which you were mentioning on Friday. It's like that medicine wrapped in cheese, and you got to feed it to the dog because the dog won't eat the medicine. So you feed the word independence, which we'll end up getting wrapped in tomorrow's self-determination.
Right.
And in the end, we all lose out.
That's right, our friend.
Don't get any of the federal benefits. And even as we speak right now, with all the benefits coming in right now through the CARES Act and all that, the privileges of being under the U.S. flag, the commissary benefits that the people of Guam get. They serve in the military. Their families get the commissary benefits, the NEX benefits. All of that's gone. And I doubt any investors will be coming out here anytime soon when the U.S. flag is not waving as high as it is right now for Guam. So I think just through our conversation, the people of Guam can determine that it's not a good outcome if that's where a few people are trying to take it. I think it's right there. I don't know what else needs to be discussed. We don't need to waste more money in court or on the ballot box.
But
the answer's right there.
You know, those separatists are, Fred, man, they are really passionate because, you know, at this last rally that they had out at NCS, you know, about a dozen of them. You remember back during the Vietnam War how people would burn their draft cards as a symbolic anti-draft? Well, at the last rally, about a dozen of them burned their U.S. passports. That'll be the day.
But I think our conversation right there spells everything out to what the public really needs to know. What's wrapped in the tomorrow self-determination wrapper.
Good point.
Right?
Good point, Fred.
Okay. So if you want to elaborate so that we can forget this determination process and get to work and really build Guam under the U.S. flag, let's get to work on that. Let's forget this silly stuff.
Let's give that man a hand, Real Joe Cruz. Let's give him a hand. Very good, Fred. I got to take a break, but good call.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Okay.
And then I got Carl right after the break.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
They're back. Any footlong is a $5 footlong when you buy one at regular price. At participating locations, Subway, eat fresh.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, launch! That's just what we did with our new state-of-the-art mobile banking app as we celebrate 66 years of serving our island communities. It's loaded with a ton of new user-friendly features, including remote deposit capture. It's another way of saying you don't have to come to the bank to go to the bank. And if you want to come to the bank, we're happy to see your smiling face as long as you wear a mask. And we don't have long lines. Bank Pacific Rosebud branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties, doing real estate since 1978. 14 years here on Guam. Call Maria Miller from Horizon Properties at 777-7792.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
And we need to have some a bumper break or back to the broadcast recording made that says, and now back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie and Carl. Because it happens so often. Hello, our Carl.
Hey, Bob. Yeah, I was listening with interest to your comments about AOC and her deep dislike for statues. One thing I found really interesting is that she neglected to mention, in addition to them being male and white, they were virtually all Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
The author and speaker Dinesh D'Souza, he once issued a challenge for anyone to produce evidence that a Republican during the slave years held a single slave. And no one was ever able to produce any evidence of this, which makes sense because the Republican Party was started as the anti-slavery party. So why would anyone join the Republican Party and have slaves? It makes no sense. So eventually someone produced evidence. They said, I caught you. I got you. General Ulysses S. Grant had a slave. And Dinesh D'Souza looked into it and he commented, yeah, that's very true. But that slave was inherited during his second marriage. It came with his wife, and he eventually freed that slave. And also that
You know, Carl, my wife has a slave too, but she lets me come down here every afternoon at 4 o'clock.
Oh, she gives you a little break, huh?
Uh-huh.
But anyway, yeah, he commented that is true. Grant did have a slave, but it was inherited through his wife, and that slave was eventually freed. And also that slave was inherited when Grant was a Democrat. He later became a Republican. So that little bit of gotcha absolutely failed in a major way. And so she neglected to mention that convenient little fact that they were all male and white, and probably all of them were Democrats.
Yeah.
And also, being a socialist, she seems to have not said anything about the extreme love that socialists during the American socialists, Democrat socialists, during the 20th century have expressed for Mao, for Lenin, for Stalin, even for Hitler, who was a national socialist, and also for the Nicaraguan socialist government. Leftists regularly visited these places run by communists and came back praising how wonderful they were. And if you look at these places, these socialist governments, they eventually develop into cults of personality, such as, the most famous one, of course, is North Korea. that socialist government, everywhere you go, there are statues idolizing, Kim Jong-un, or whichever Kim it is now. I keep getting them mixed up. There's so many Kims. But Mao just had statues all over the place, only of Mao. If you put any other statues up, you would risk getting thrown in prison or killed. Lenin and Stalin were the same way. Hitler was the same way. They all because they had absolute control, they could develop this cult of personality where they just demanded to be idolized. And even today, when you go to China, which
Carl, I understand that the woke lefties in New York wanted to tear down the Statue of Liberty. Yeah, but someone came to their defense saying that the Statue of Liberty was really a transgender.
Oh, really?
So it was okay.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. That because they're really trying to destroy American history. If you can destroy a people's history and their sense of pride in history, which is what they're trying to do now, then you can cause a collapse of a government from within, of a society from within. And that's exactly what they're doing now. They're working on destroying American history and denigrating it in whatever way they can for that purpose, while conveniently ignoring all the horrific, and I know you don't like that word horrific, but I think that it applies, horrific crimes done by the socialists and the communists. Professor R.J. Rummel, just in China alone, his extensive research estimates that they killed, through starvation and mass murder, as many as over 76 million ordinary Chinese people. So no time to criticize them, but they'll criticize America. So I just find that very ironic. Anyway, that's my 2 cents for now.
Okay, R. Carl, thanks for calling in. And R. Carl mentioned cult of personality and what he referred to as North Korea, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. I had the pleasure of visiting there a couple of years ago, and there is a cult of personality built around Kim Il-sung, the founder of the DPRK, and his son, Kim Jong-il. And the latest in the Kim dynasty is now Kim Jong-un. And they create this cult of personality with statuary, pictures. Everywhere you go, you see a picture of the two elder Kims. Now, we don't have anything like that here, I don't think. Do we, Real Joe Cruz? I don't think we have anything like that here. Like that picture on the wall of the library downtown?
Yes.
Yeah. That isn't our governor, is it?
It kind of looks like her a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Might be. Could be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, it's just something to think about. Okay, so kind of a long Second Amendment today. Let's go next to Demi Ikotny. And, of course, the Daily News today is running boilerplate from USA Today. And here's the title, Here's Why Minorities in STEM Careers Feel Excluded. It's more of the same old stuff, identity politics. So I'm not going to waste any time on it. I will reference to what I read instead of the Daily News editorial on Friday, which was Ken Leon Guerrero's letter to the editor, which was pretty well done, and he made this nice comparison, this nice dichotomy between politicians and public servants. And he urged us all to look for public servants and not politicians during the next election, which caused me to remember I think we got two Bobs here, right?
Maybe it's your iPad or whatever.
Yeah. No, it's my desktop here.
What's that, sir?
It's my desktop. How do I mute it?
You probably got to go to your Facebook, where your Facebook is playing, and there should be a little volume thing there on the screen, maybe below the screen.
I think I got it.
There you go. Yeah, I can still hear a little bit.
I think I got it now.
Okay.
So, with respect to Ken, I said, well, when it comes to servants, public servants and politicians, let's go back to November 21st, 2014, when we had the great salary smash and grab and the WANPAT 10. The WANPAT 10 was the 10 senators in office that time that with the connivance of the acting governor, Ray Tenorio, gave themselves $25,000 retroactive salary increases without the benefit of a public hearing or even much debate. It took them about an hour. The lieutenant governor called them into special session, sent the bill over an hour, and there was no public hearing. Speaker Wonpat didn't even do her certificate that Tina Rose Munia Barnes is so adept at, saying that there was an emergency condition for public health and safety. So in an hour, they adopted it. They sent it to Ray Tenori. We signed it the same day. In 24 days, the money was in their pocket. So I said, you know, and Ken and Andrew Bainham led the charge with respect to the members of the Wonpat 10. You remember the mistake 8 signs, etc. And Ken was very vocal about not forgetting what these people did, you know, and I said the same thing. You know, the popular mythology is that senators can do really outrageous things. People will be really fired up for a few weeks, they'll forget, and it won't hurt anybody's career. And I said, this time, I'm not going to forget. And I recall Ken saying pretty much the same thing. So here we are. On that test, if we use the Wonpat 10 test, then Ken should be campaigning against Tony Atta and Chris Duenas, who were members of the Wonpat 10. The second team of the Wonpat 10 came along. That was in the 32nd. In the 33rd, the Wonpat 10 was reconstituted by people who had not been in the 32nd, but had been elected for the 33rd and were partaking of that gigantic raise and voting against the attempts to repeal that gigantic raise. That would be Tina again. It would be Frank Blas Jr., Senator Tony Atta, and Senator Mary Torres. So if we're looking at politicians, I think that qualifies those folks for politicians. And I would expect Ken at the appropriate time to campaign against them. Now, that would be, as in my estimation, that would be the public servant approach. If you want to be a politician, then you would repeat Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment, which is, thou shalt not speak ill of thy fellow Republican, and you wouldn't say boo about Tony Atta or Chris Duenas or Mary Torres or Frank Blas or Tony Atta, because they're all members of your Republican Party. So that's going to be the kind of the litmus test there for candidate Ken Leon Guerrero. One more thing before I leave this, and that is that to Chris's credit, he called, I think it was on Friday, and said, yeah, I voted for it. And he'd already lost. He voted for it. And he said that one thing that he certainly learned was that he would never vote on anything without the sanctity of a public hearing. So, you know, the first element of forgiveness is confession, repentance, forgiveness. So Chris has at least come forward and done that. So I'm going to do the post editorial, although it's more. I'll tie it back to our commissioner of GIGO. Enforcement sorely needed to address illegal trash dumping, abandonment of junk cars. On Saturday morning, hundreds of volunteers hit the beaches, parks, and jungles to help rid the island of trash. This time, the government of Guam's island-wide beautification task force led the efforts. We thank the organizers and many volunteers who braved the dirty task of picking up other people's mess. Most of the trash items didn't have to be left for others to pick up. There are countries and communities that are super clean and where people fear throwing the tiniest bit of trash, such as chewing gum or candy wrapper. I'm going to add one in here, or a cigarette butt. Good time to take a break, Real Joe Cruz.
Wow, nice smile. So perfect and all.
Thanks. I owe it all to Dr. Robert Yang and his smile team. They do wonders for a healthy, happy mouth.
Got teeth? Don't wait until they hurt. Schedule your routine checkup and cleaning with Dr. Yang and his smile team. Suite 119 in the East West Business Center, Upper Tumon. Call 647-8702 or 3.
The best thing that happened to teeth since toothpaste.
Dr. Yang and his smile team.
They make smiles happen.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumon or call 646-1463.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. They're open in Agotna, and they're ready for dine-in, takeout, and delivery services from Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Call them at 479-2652 and get your Mezcla fix today.
Middle of the editorial here. Clearly, there's a problem with enforcement. Clearly, there is a pervasive mentality on this beautiful island to literally trash it, causing it to decay. Unless our laws get more stringent and unless enforcement gets tougher, Guam will continue to be littered with trash, tarnishing its natural beauty. Well, we had an event last week that really is appropriate here. We had a public hearing on Senator Talina Nelson's bill that would close the loophole in some of our gambling machine legislation. And a mayor, the mayor of Jigo, who's finishing up his second term and has the ability to enforce the anti-littering provisions that we have, who has the ability to write citations to people who are littering, and probably has to be the frontliner, right? The front line of anti-littering enforcement, criticized Senator Talina Nelson for trying to close the gambling machine loopholes when she should be concerned with littering and stray dogs. You know, yeah, the mayor who has that responsibility is criticizing the senator, saying she should be more concerned with that. Now, I don't know if he expected her, you know, during those long recesses that the legislature has to go out with one of those poles with a loop on the end that you use to catch a stray dog. And maybe that's what our senators should all be doing, catching stray dogs. Yeah, so as long as, you know, and this editorial mentions mentality, as long as we have that mentality amongst our mayors, and of course they've told us that it's not, they don't have, that once upon a time the mayor's council said, we don't have time to do that. We're too busy. We're too busy to mow the lawns at the schools. We're too busy to go out and collect trash. Somebody else should do that stuff. So, here's an idea. Mayors can collect the vehicle identification numbers of junk cars in their villages. They can submit a report to RevTax, Vehicle Registration Division. Anyone applying to register the purchase of a vehicle, whether used or brand new, shouldn't be allowed to do so if their name is attached to the ownership of a vehicle that has been left to rot along streets or abandoned boonies. That's a good idea, except for one word in that sentence that probably won't work. The word won't work. You know what the word that won't work is, Real Joe Cruz?
What is it, sir?
Mayors. Yeah. That's a double entendre in the classic sense. Yeah. So you're right here. You're right, Post, but you didn't really nail it down as to who needs to get up and get moving to do this, and that's the village mayors. High paid, higher, $75,000 a year, and the most that the mayor of the largest village on the island can do is come down and criticize a senator for introducing anti-gambling legislation and telling her she should be more concerned about litter. We got a serious problem here. Okay, so much for Demi Ecotney. I saw a couple things on Facebook that I ought to comment on. One was, I can't find it now, but talking about independence, what about American citizenship? Well, this is my analysis. If tomorrow, if the Congress passed a bill or passed into law, a law that said the United States hereby relinquishes all sovereignty over the island of Guam and declares that it is now an independent entity, people who are American citizens now would continue to be American citizens. My reading of cases like Afroyim versus Rusk and other cases suggests to me that citizenship is indelible. And once you got it, you can't lose it. You can relinquish it if you go to a foreign consulate, a consulate in a foreign country, sign a bunch of papers, and are interviewed. You could stop being an American citizen. And this happens because some people with huge amounts of money want to stop being American citizens to avoid American taxation. But that's about the only way you can stop being an American citizen. So those who are American citizens at the time that the United States says Guam is now independent would continue. But people born the next day, nope, would not be American citizens unless they could be somehow pull themselves into the jus sanguinis type of American citizenship. That is, the children of two American citizens, etc.
So you're saying they could be grandfathered in, sir?
You sure know how to hurt a guy, real Joe Cruz. very, very good, yeah. So what do you, after that, we're going to switch pilots, real Joe Cruz? All right. So the good ship Tall Tales, the airship Tall Tales, is now under the command of Jose Martinez. Keep her off the rocks and shoals, Jose.
I'll do my best, but it's probably best if I'm silent right now.
Me too. So I guess you showed him where the Janela button is on the control panel there, huh, real Joe Cruz?
I was searching for it.
All right. Okay, let's see what we got on the card here today. I've got first item on the card is Systemen Gobierno Kanilak versus Systemen Gobierno Pinexu. So, no. And then we've got Gleeman versus Guam Memorial Hospital, Lubofsky versus SDA, GOP versus Little Lulu, Therese Terlahi versus Joe San Augustine, Wokesters versus America, Bavacqua versus America, and of course the usual items of Tina Rose and Janela. So as far as Janela is concerned, it has been 75 days since the pronouncements by Crystal Paco Azure Crystal. Okay, let's come back to the card right after the big halftime show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Watching the storm. I'm Paul Stevens, Fox News. Tropical storm Isaias making a pass off Florida's east coast on Sunday, heading north. Senior hurricane specialist Dan Brown at the National Hurricane Center.
Near where it makes landfall in either South or North Carolina is likely to experience the strongest winds, and we do have a hurricane watch out for a portion of that area, as the system could become a hurricane before it reaches the coast.
Tropical storm warnings are in effect as far north as Virginia. The Marine Corps saying 8 troops are presumed dead after their landing craft sank off the Southern California coast during a training exercise. Marines announcing Sunday that they had called off the search for 7 Marines and 1 Navy corpsman. An amphibious assault vehicle sank Thursday with 15 Marines and 1 Navy sailor on board. 8 Marines were rescued. 1 later died. 2 are hospitalized in critical condition. An American spacecraft splashing down Sunday for the first time in 45 years after a mission. Astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken aboard the SpaceX Dragon hit the Gulf of Mexico off the Pensacola, Florida coast after spending the last 2 months on board the International Space Station. Doug Hurley just before leaving the capsule Endeavour.
Anybody who's touched Endeavour, you should take a moment to just cherish this day, especially given all the things that have happened this year. We certainly can't thank you enough. Our families can't thank you enough. And just proud to be a small part of this whole effort to get a company, people to and from the space station.
That audio courtesy of NASA TV. Afghan officials say that a complex attack by the Islamic State group against a prison in eastern Nangarhar province that began Sunday evening has continued into Monday. At least 11 people have been killed, 42 others hurt in an ongoing gun battle. America's listening to Fox News.
Hi, welcome to Chili's.
We have lunch selection starting at $9. Choose from a variety of mouth-watering entrees like our old-timer with cheese, ranchero chicken tacos, or the half-rack baby back ribs. All lunch selections are served with a refreshing bottomless Coca-Cola beverage. Experience the bold flavors at a great price with Chili's lunch selection starting at $9. Available Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Located in the Two Monsignors Plaza, 2nd floor. Chili's, savor the moment.
Hafidi, this is Kayla from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated team in Guam and the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
2 of the women said to be on presumptive Democratic White House nominee Joe Biden's short list for vice president are talking about the potential pick.
California Congresswoman Karen Bass says whomever is Biden's pick faces a steep learning curve.
Everyone has said, whoever has been in the Oval Office, that you can never be 100% prepared.
But if he wins, Biden will be the oldest to take the oath at 78. Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth says any of those being considered as a running mate can step in and lead.
I've worked with each and every one of them, and any one of us can step up and do the job. It's about bringing the country together.
Both appeared on Fox News Sunday. Biden is expected to reveal his choice prior to the Democratic Convention, which starts August 17th. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte reimposing a moderate lockdown in the capital and outlying provinces. This after medical groups appeal for the move as coronavirus infections surge alarmingly in that nation. The Manila region and 5 densely populated provinces will now revert to stricter quarantine restrictions for at least 2 weeks starting this Tuesday. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo continuing to talk tough when it comes to the Chinese government.
The Chinese Communist Party, and you saw this with our closure of the consulate in Houston, is running espionage operations inside the United States and attempting deep influence targeting of American business leaders, of American congressmen, of city council members. We saw it happen up to a state senator in Wisconsin. This is a deep effort to conduct influence operations to undermine American democracy and put our nation at risk.
Secretary Pompeo on Fox's Sunday Morning Futures with Maria Bartiromo. And Microsoft is confirming that it's in talks with the Chinese company ByteDance to acquire the U.S. arm of its popular TikTok video sharing app. And they have discussed, they say, with President Trump his concerns about security and censorship. I'm Paul Stevens, and this is Fox News.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hacatya and Tuman are now open for takeout and free delivery services in selected locations. For more information, call 479-2652 or 3 or 969-2652. Open Monday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comforts of your own home. They take your favorite local dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Woo-wee! Just take a gander at them tender and juicy fall-off-the-bone St. Louis ribs. Heavens to Betsy! What is their secret? It's bursting with so much flavor, I can eat them all day long. Come see for yourself, y'all. These fine slabs of hunky-dory, mouth-watering ribs are only available at Circle K. Circle K. Take it easy.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
So here we are after that big halftime show, the marching band, the drill team. What we used to have synchronized card sections in the stands, but since the Wuhan virus came along, there's nobody in the stands anymore. So after having enjoyed that great halftime show, I go on to a little bit more enjoyment, which is Jimmy's second ride on the Ferris wheel today. Welcome aboard, Jimmy.
Well, that's a little bit over the top, isn't it?
Well, I just wanted to tell the international radio listening audience that I'm back. No, wait a minute. That's...
And we're all glad for that.
Yeah.
Right. Earlier, okay, got 3 or 4 points. Earlier, you were talking about the smash and grab in 2014.
Yes, sir.
Where they raised everybody's salaries, and included was the mayor's salaries. A mayor's getting $75, as you said, $75,000 a year.
But not during the smash and grab, Jimmy, at the beginning of that legislature, but they are at the $75,000 level, so go ahead.
No, they raised their salaries at the same time as they raised senators' salaries.
No, Jimmy.
I read the newspaper.
Well, anyhow, go ahead.
Anyway, the mayor's salaries were raised, and people got angry, and they cut back the senator salaries to $55,000, $56,000, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But they never cut back the mayor's salaries. A mayor, okay, village, this little village, maybe 3,000 people, they get $75,000 taxpayer money, whatever mayor that is. Probably some little village down south. You know, I don't have a research staff. All I have is memory. And then, again, about the mayors. How much did it cost for the mayors to go to the Strawberry Festival in the Philippines?
Yeah, I know what you mean, Jimmy. And our mayor,
$60,000.
Our mayor of Jigo, the first time he was elected, the ink was hardly dry on his certificate of election, and he took a junket to the Philippines. That wasn't enough. He had Angel Sablon staff him, carry his suitcase, open the doors for him, etc. But good point, Jimmy.
And another question: why does a Guamanian gubernatorial candidate go to the Philippines to campaign to be elected to office on Guam, USA?
Which candidate would that be, Jimmy?
Quick Draw Tenorio and King Leon Guerrero's buddy. Both of them. It's in the newspaper.
Who was Ken Leon Guerrero's buddy?
I can't remember.
Okay, yeah, I do remember when Tenorio did go to the Philippines, yeah.
And King Leon Guerrero's buddy, you know, the split between the whatever party it was. I don't care about the damn parties. I'm still going to vote for King Leon Guerrero, even though the candidate he supported went to the Philippines to campaign for the office of governor of Guam, USA.
You must be talking about Frank Ogden.
Well, maybe I am.
Yeah. Okay.
Your memory is better than mine.
Okay.
There's another question. Why does the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce invite Duterte's close associate to Guam? This guy is, okay, human rights. I don't know his name. Okay, anyway, enough said. Now I have a mea culpa.
Okay.
Yeah, one time we talked about Tina Rose Munoz Barnes.
Yeah.
Tina Rose Munoz Barnes would never win anything on the card because she leads with her chins.
Right.
And you said she's got a glass jaw.
Uh-huh.
But she doesn't have a glass jaw.
She does not.
Because glass is transparent.
Ah.
Tina Rose Munoz Barnes is anything but. So mea culpa, mea maxima culpa.
Okay. Well, Dios te ayude, amigo. Lahi. Okay. Thank you, Jimmy.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember when he called, when I was talking about Tina, when he was talking about having Tina on the card, and he said the reason she's not on the card is because she's always leading with her chins. Yeah. As far as the smash and grab is concerned, this is my memory. I may have to go back and look at this. At the beginning of the 32nd, massive raises were given across the board, but the senator said, we shouldn't do this for ourselves. We won't do it. They waited until after the election was over. The election was over like on the 7th of November or the 5th of November, and they did their smash and grab on the 21st, after it was safe. And I think they did the mayors in the beginning of the legislature, although Jimmy may be right. And then when we got to the 33rd, and the San Nicolas posse, San Nicolas and 4 other senators tried numerable times to roll back those raises. There was a lot of really interesting manipulation, because the thinking was that everybody was afraid to roll back the mayor's races. Because, popular wisdom holds that the mayors, if you piss off the mayors, they will make sure that their village doesn't vote for you. So everybody wants to pander to the mayors. So if you wanted to put a poison pill on a bill, have a bill that would roll back the salaries of senators and mayors. And you could pretty much guarantee that that bill wouldn't go. And then that's, of course, where we really got good at playing legislative blackjack, where you count cards before you make your bet. So there were, even Rory was able to do that in such a manner that he could say, I voted to roll back my salary. He picked the right time, voted near enough to the end of the alphabet that he could vote vote in favor of a bill to roll back salaries, but still keep the money. So that was as sad an era of legislation as I hope we'll ever see again. And that's why I keep bringing up the names of both Juan Pat-Tens, the initial and then the substitute Juan Pat-Ten. Okay, let's see. I've got Les Hommes de la France on the line, right? Good afternoon, Frenchie.
Good afternoon, Bob. How are you?
I'm doing great, Frenchie.
You recovered from the weekend. That's good.
Yeah, it was tough.
Right.
Once Friel Joe and I are back on the air, our strength comes back quickly.
All right. Well, that's good. I want to backtrack a little bit on what you were talking earlier in the show, which was AOC, because it was several things happened this weekend that went a little below the radar because the local media doesn't cover it except for a few blogs. And your preferred senator, Senator Marsh Takano, has been posting on Facebook for our campaign. She's been pandering to people. Even though she says she's pondering some new formulas, but I don't know how she does that. And one of the things she used in order to pander was one of AOC's attacks on male paternalistic societies and so on and so forth. And so I kind of confronted her online about that and telling her that she instead of trying to make a division between people on Guam, she would rather unite the people. That would be a lot more fruitful, especially in this time of crisis with the economy and tens of thousands of people having lost their jobs. The last thing we need is people trying to divide us rather than unite us. And so then she said, she was using that for the girls that have been sexually abused on Guam, which is a huge problem. And I said, well, true, but, as we've seen the last few years, a lot of boys have also been abused. So why just use one and not the other? We should include all victims, not just some victims. And basically, I was trying to better out to talk about identity politics, which is exactly what she's been doing. And I mentioned to her that, and then of course she ignored that fact that, on Guam we are mostly Catholics. Some are just the baptism, First Communion, marriage, and funeral Catholics, but there are still a lot of serious Catholics on the island. And it was insulting for her to use somebody like Ocasio-Cortez, who had just attacked Father Damien quite viciously. And, of course, she totally ignored this thing. But it's very important that if you're Catholic on the island, you need to know who those politicians are that are anti-Catholic, like the governor, like Mrs. March Tatano, and others, I would also put RU in there, So it's very interesting because at the same time, in the Post this weekend, both on Sunday and also today, Father Fran, who, as you know, is a Jesuit, had a letter to the editor questioning why are the church getting empty and is tradition, going back to tradition, the solution to the problem. So that was one column. Then also on our friend Tim Rohr's blog appeared the story about the security agent at GMH who was fired because he called a priest to help with the last rite of a patient at emergency room. And this story apparently has taken a life of its own because websites like The Remnant have talked about it. So it's a national, very well followed website, and also LifeSite News, which is also a very well read Catholic website. So they've taken this thing, and what was interesting is that the first priest that was called by this security person at the behest of the family was the parish pastor of the local parish, which is St. Anthony, and he basically refused the last rites, and he said, "Well, we cannot do it." And when he was confronted, then another priest finally came in and decided to do it because the nurse and the doctors had agreed to it. But then when the chancellor was, who is filling in for the archbishop, who is absent at this time for health reason, was asked what was going on, he basically is trying to put the hospital under the proverbial bus, even though apparently the archdiocese has an agreement with the hospital on how to proceed in such cases, which is when somebody is in emergency room, if the family wants to have last rite, then the emergency room personnel needs to be warned in advance so that they can get an extra room outside of the emergency room because, of course, you know, emergency room is a very busy area and all that, so that they can have a private area in order to give the last rite to the patients. But I think it's going to be a very interesting story, and it was a total contrast with what Father Fran was saying in his letter, because basically the main reason many churches are getting empty is because of lack of leadership by our priest. And here in this case, you have a lay person who has lost his job, and the archdiocese is not doing anything. It's not leading, trying to get this guy's job back or trying to help him in any financial way for doing what the parish priest should have done. And on top of it, we have a chancellor who is throwing the hospital under the bus. So this is all tied up. We have people that hate us, and we have a lack of support from the people that are supposed to be the shepherds, the leaders of the pack, and they are not. And that's why we end up with people like Marsh Titano and other governor, who is the biggest promoter of the assassination of babies on the island, are in power and pushing very noxious, toxic agendas, and we have to live with it. And they are very poor leaders. So that was my reflection on today's thing, and that was kind of a throwback to how you started the show with Ocasio-Cortez, because it's exactly what we are going to get if we are not careful here on Guam with the likes of Marsh Titano and others. And we've seen how radical they can get. Right now, they are not too radical because they don't think the time is right. But basically, when you're using Ocasio-Cortez to push for certain issues here on Guam, that should be a big red flag. I don't know what you think, but that's the way I see it.
Well, this story was the second item on my card, Frenchie, but I think you really kind of laid out the boundaries. And, you know, it would seem to me that given the necessity for a Catholic to have the last rites, if it's at all possible, the priest would not be easily dissuaded from performing that extreme unction. And according to the news story that ran in Lightside News, the priest said that he thought that Gleeman, the security guard, was trying to tell him what to do, and therefore he left.
Yeah, which is not really the real story that happened.
Well, let's assume that it is the real story.
Yeah.
Let's assume that Gleeman is a Catholic, right?
Yeah.
Not a Father Fran Catholic, but a Catholic who really understands the faith.
Yeah.
And he knows that the sacraments are the essence of the Catholic Church, and he knows that someone who's at death's door ought to have a priest do the last rites if it's at all possible.
Yes.
So, operating from that standpoint, I would expect Gleeman to do things like being if he's dealing with a reluctant priest, to be very assertive. Yeah. Maybe up to the point of shaking a fist in the face and saying, "Father, you have to do this. You're a priest." And I would expect the priest to take on that same sort of behavior and approach hospital authorities and say, "I know you have your rules, and I know that sanitation is important, but I have to exhaust every possibility because I'm dealing not with a life but with a soul." And not say, "I don't like the way you're talking to me, therefore I'm leaving."
Yeah, and then we had to get a second priest to do the job he should have done in the first place.
Yes.
You know, but it's kind of sad, and it was kind of almost ironic that Father Fran did his column. I'm sure he wrote it several days ago in order to have it published now, but that it came out about the same time that his story was coming out, because the two are very much related. And if we are not careful, as faithful of the Catholic faith and other Christians, we're going to end up with a lot of Marsh Titano and the likes of AOC on Island. And we know there are several in the wings of the UOG that are ready to come forward. And we have to be very careful about that, especially in this election period.
That's exactly right. And you'll recall right after the election, when we were talking about some of the firsts, like for the first time we had an openly homosexual lieutenant governor, and none other than Jose came along and said, "Yeah, and for the first time we have an openly pro-abortion governor."
Yeah,
I did say that.
You did, Jose.
I am my own citation.
Yeah, good for you. Jose tells it like it is, which is probably going to make it awfully hard to be the producer of Tall Tales. Okay, Frenchie, well, thanks a lot.
Well, thank you very much to both of you.
On that one, okay. So, that was the second item on the card, Gleeman versus Guam Memorial Hospital. What a shameful incident all around, except for Gleeman. Gleeman's the hero in that whole story.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
$5 footlong. Pile high with veggies.
They're back. Any footlong is a $5 footlong when you buy one at regular price. At participating locations, Subway, eat fresh.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties, doing real estate since 1978. 14 years here on Guam. Call Maria Miller from Horizon Properties at 777-7792.
Seventh inning stretch from Wrigley Field in Chicago. Nobody on the diamond, nobody in the stands. Fear of Wuhan virus everywhere except on tall tales. So I'm going to pick up here with what Frenchie and I were talking about, and I have a leading question. I'll be with you in just a second, Ken. I have a leading question for Jose.
Oh boy,
Jose, you want to know how it feels to be a doormat?
how it feels to be a doormat.
Yeah, you know how you could find out how it feels to be a doormat?
I don't want to feel like a doormat, but I am interested in how it feels to be a doormat.
Well, then just let everybody walk all over you.
Oh, got it.
And I don't want to be in a position of telling the Catholic Church, the Archdiocese of Agania what to do, but I am in a position to tell everybody what I like to see. And when Lou and Commissar DeNorsi were walking all over the church because of the Wuhan virus, I would have really liked to seen the church stand up. When Commissar DeNorsi comes out and answers Father Paul of the Liturgical Council's very well-written, polite letter saying, this is how we want to do it. And she writes back and says, you can't have sacramental services. That was pretty ugly. I mean, they can tell you to wear a mask and how much distance you should maintain and all that kind of stuff, but you cannot tell us we can't have sacramental services, and that should have been the rallying cry right there. And then the story, the Gleeman story, which, by the way, has got international legs now. It's on LifeSite News, it's on The Remnant, etc. We're going to get some ink out of it. We're going to get some press out of this. The church needed to take a strong position with respect to the last rites. I mean, that's where you need it the most. That's where a lot of people die, is in the hospital. And now that this has happened, I would expect a strong comeback from the church. And I don't know exactly what, but I would like to see somebody come along and say, let's pass the hat for this guy Gleeman. You know, thank God we got one guy in this island who knows what it means to be a Catholic. Okay, I'm going to leave that. And next item on the card is one that there's a lot of interest in. It's Lubofsky versus the Seventh-day Adventist Clinic. But before that, I'm going to go to Ken Leon Guerrero, also known as the other Governor Leon Guerrero. Hi, Ken.
Hi, thank you very much. I wanted to call in today to encourage people to go to the Guam Election Commission or call and make an appointment at 477-9791 and vote early. Today I went to a bank to cash a check. I had to stand in line an hour and a half. There were less than 100 people in line, but it took me an hour and a half to go through and cash a check. Just imagine how that's going to be at the primary polling stations for more than 100 people showing up to vote. And so I'm encouraging everybody, I've got knee problems. And so I barely made it into the bank, even with my braces on, So I'm encouraging everybody that has health issues.
You were wearing suspenders, Ken?
No, knee braces.
Oh, okay. I thought you said braces. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I'm encouraging everybody that's got, family members that have health issues or, living with their parents or having children. Since everybody has so much time on their hands these days, call in, make an appointment, go in and vote early. And then if we get enough people to vote, we have a chance to change the direction of this island. Because a low voter turnout favors incumbents, and there's not very many incumbents that we want to keep. So we need to have more people come out and vote. The higher numbers will favor the new candidates, and there are a lot of good new candidates running for office. And that's the only way we're going to change the direction of the island, is change the people that we got at the helm.
You know, Ken, I was thinking about going down and voting tomorrow, but there's a really good reason I can't. I can't. There isn't anybody that I want to vote for. So would it make sense to go down there and put a blank ballot, an unmarked ballot in the box? I guess it would, huh?
Well, this was an election that didn't have to happen and shouldn't have had to happen, except for the Democrats as a group. The Democrat Party leadership are so upset with Mike Nicholas for refusing to sign a loyalty pledge, pledging loyalty to the Democrat Party over loyalty to the people. And they're still upset about that. And that's why we have this primary. Either this, the Wuhan is real or it's not. If it's real, then they shouldn't have had the primary. And if it's not, they shouldn't have shut down the economy, shut down the government, shut down the schools, and put nearly 40,000 people on unemployment. They can't have it both ways.
Ken, do you know the meaning of the phrase res judicata?
No, I don't.
It's a good lawyer's term. Res judicata means a thing adjudicated. And the fact that we should have a primary, we can't cancel a primary after we've already identified the candidates. That decision is res judicata, remember?
Okay. Well, there's a phrase that I love from Thomas Jefferson. He said, there may come a time when common sense overrules law, but there should never be a time when law overrules common sense. I think this is one of those moments, because we've only got 9 contested races in the mayor's office, in the mayor's villages.
I don't have the rules of engagement for tall tales in front of me, but one of the things that it says is that don't look for an abundance of common sense on tall tales, because tall tales is what tells you that the earth is flat, that objects that are heavier than air could never fly, and that iron ships would never float. So on tall tales, we don't look for common sense when it's a synonym for timidity. We like to think about the what ifs and the hypotheticals. But let me take you down a different path, okay, Ken? I know where you're coming from on the fact that we're going to have a primary. I think probably no matter how persuasive you are, the ship has left the dock, and no matter what, we're going to have it, right?
Yeah, we're going to have it. That's why I want to make sure that we have a good voter turnout, because just my random sampling, I'm thinking we're going to be around 30%, maybe 40%. Because basically it's like maybe 3 or 4 out of 10 people are planning on voting this primary. We need to have more people vote. Wouldn't it be funny if the turnout was so low that nobody qualified under the current laws?
The 750 rule? It would be.
Yeah, the 750 rule.
That might be, maybe that's what I should start stumping for. Maybe that would be the best result we could get.
Well, you'd certainly meet your requirement of not seeing anybody worth voting for, have everybody unelected, and force a repeat.
Yeah, he'd probably call in about that too.
Yeah, I would. It'd be interesting.
Repeat.
We'd have a runoff election. We'd have a runoff election where nobody was elected, so we have to have a runoff.
Let me take you down a different path here, Ken. The other day you had a piece in the Daily News, learn lessons of the past, make better decisions. And it was so well written that I didn't even identify the Daily News column for that day. I substituted your op-ed piece for the Daily News column, and it was good enough that you would have rated a blue star, except you've already had a couple of blue stars. So I wanted to help you work on your humility there. Maybe you could be as, given enough time, you could be as humble as I am and as proud of your humility as I am. But
yeah, but a chance to get a blue star, that says a lot right there.
It does.
It's not quite the Medal of Honor, but it's close.
Close enough. So anyhow, the point I made was that you had this dichotomy between the public servant and the politician.
Yeah.
So I refreshed the recollection of our international radio listening audience to the Juan Pat 10 and the great smash and grab of November 20, 2014, when the Juan Pat 10 gave themselves retroactive $25,000 raises, and the whole thing was wrapped up in one day.
It was wrapped up in 4 hours and 31 minutes when you look at the timestamp.
The acting governor, special session, bill, no public hearing. Juan Pat didn't even do the certificate that Tina is so quick to do on inconsequential bills. But here's the fallout of that. From the original Juan Pat 10, we have two people who are running for election right now.
Three.
Tina Rose Munya Barnes, three. We have Tina Rose Munya Barnes, Tony Atta, and Chris Duenas. Now, at the time of the Juan Pat 10, and during the 33rd, when the first Juan Pat 10 dissolved but was replaced by another 10, Juan Pat 10-2, Andre, you, and I promised that we would not forget this, if my memory serves me correctly. Mentioning that conventional political wisdom was that senators could do really outrageous things, but people had a short memory or were very forgiving. A couple months later, no one remembered. So it's time to remember.
Yes, it is.
It's time to remember Tina, Tony, Chris, and then from the second go-around, we have Tina, Mary Torres, Frank Blas Jr., and Senator Tony Atta, all of whom dug their heels in many, many times and resisted the San Nicolas Posse when the San Nicolas Posse attempted to roll those raises back. So tell me if you agree that all of those participants in either one of the Juan Pat 10 showed themselves to be politicians.
All of them did.
All of them, including, of course, Tina.
You may have noticed in my posts that I've been doing that I am holding them accountable for that, and I will continue to hold them accountable for it. And in the upcoming, as we get closer to the general election, my tradition of putting together the recommend list. Well, I'm going to be doing the same thing I've always done, and I'm going to go back over the sins, because it's not just the smash and grab. There were a number of bills that were introduced for the benefit of politically well-connected insiders that just, tore a hole in the financial security of our families and the government. I mean, we could start with Bill 30, which cost taxpayers $10 million right off the bat. Then there was the Liberation Day Carnival that cost taxpayers almost $750,000. So there's a whole litany. The Romeo and Juliet bill, the double pay for 2,000 well-connected exempt employees for the 19th floor party conga line.
Let's go back to the Juan Pat 10, Ken, for a moment, okay? It was a real watershed in Guam politics because I think it caused a lot of people to change their attitude towards voting and towards senators.
Absolutely.
And I see it as something that's very important that it be brought back to the popular attention now. And I'm glad to hear that you're doing that, because as far as I'm concerned, in the absence of confession and repentance, I think it's a game stopper for any of those people that participated in either Juan Pat 1, Juan Pat 10-1, or Juan Pat 10 too. And I guess you agree, right?
I do.
So there's kind of a conflict of principles here then, because on the one hand, we have your definition or your dichotomy between public servants and politicians, and then on the other hand, we have Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment, thou shalt not speak ill of thy fellow Republican.
Well, I don't have a problem with that because, number one, I came into this game representing the people first. So the Republican Party probably does not like me as much as the Democrat Party doesn't like Mike Nicholas. There are a lot of great Republican candidates. In fact, on my recommend list, the 3 of the incumbents that were surviving are on it, and we have a number of good Republican new faces that will do the people of Guam proud, because I've sat down and talked with these people, and and I look at their past. That's what I look at. What's their track record? Because if you come from a history of public service, then there's a really good chance that you'll continue in that public service. 50-50. But if we go back with the politicians who've already proved themselves very greedy, they're very self-serving, and very susceptible to influence, there's 100% if they get back in, they're going to continue to do the same things they did in the 35th, the 34th, and the 33rd, and the 32nd. Their path is so well worn, they can't deviate. But with these new Republican candidates, we have a really good chance because they come from a background of public service first before they went into politics. So that gives me hope that there's the Republican Party may not like me, but I like a lot of the Republicans, and that's why I'm supporting them. Because I believe that the only part I will go political, I believe we're going to need a Republican majority, and we have the people in the batting queue who hit that home. See, I got the 5th inning in there. So we got the people in the new candidates. We have enough good people in the new candidates that we can get there without having to draft the one Pac 10.
Okay, well, that's good, because I think in addition to the candidacy of the Juan Pat 10, there's a really important, as Ray Tenorio would say, teachable moment there. And
that's what this whole,
and the teachable moment is this, that if a politician does something wrong, he must not only be corrected, he must be punished, or he'll do the same thing again. If the only thing happens is somebody says, that was wrong. So that's why I think it's really important that this whole Juan Pat thing be an important issue going into this election, Ken.
Well, I'm keeping that the history, those who, sins of the past. I'm keeping those sins right in front of everybody so that they can remember them. Because you're right, I think that the Juan Pat 10 is hoping that the people are distracted enough by the Wuhan, the school closing, being out of a job, being broke, on the verge of eviction, having had their cars repossessed, out of money, waiting in line for hours to get food. So they're hoping that people are distracted enough by that they'll forget, oh, by the way, I gave myself a $25,000 retroactive pay raise, But we're not going to let them forget that.
Very good, Ken. Thanks a lot for calling. I'm going down the home stretch here. I'm going to ride down the home stretch with our Fred and Jimmy, both of whom Jimmy's back for his 3rd ride on the Ferris wheel, huh? Let's put him on the merry-go-round this time instead of the Ferris wheel. Thanks, Ken.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumont, or call 646-1463.
If you've ever struggled for breath, you know what a scary experience it is. Whether you have asthma, emphysema, COPD, lung cancer, or another respiratory illness, the right medical treatment makes all the difference. GRMC's Pulmonology Clinic has the latest technology and respiratory equipment, staffed by world-class pulmonologists. Make an appointment today with GRMC's Pulmonology Clinic and start breathing easier. GRMC, where patients are partners.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
So here we are, home stretch, Louisville, Kentucky, Churchill Downs, heading down that final lap of the Kentucky Derby here. And riding side saddle with me is our Fred. Hello, our Fred.
Hey, second time on the merry-go-round.
There you go.
All right, so I want to echo what Ken was saying, and again, people of Guam, the definition of a fool is doing the same thing twice or three times and expecting a different result. If we vote the same people in again, don't expect anything different. We need a whole new change this time around. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same thing. A repeat of the existing, the current, a repeat of now. Do you want a repeat of now? A repeat of what's going on between 2018 to 2020? It's the same thing that's going to happen. If there was going to be any change done, Bob, it could have been done now. Why do we have to vote the same people in to expect things to change? They could have done it now. They could do it today. Even the senator that proposed the law on emergency powers to be regulated. Well, is that the law, Bob, or the proposal?
Senator Sabina Paris has introduced such a bill. Yes.
It's called limit the emergency powers. Is that right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, little bit too late, or little bit. What's the saying?
Too little,
too late.
Too little,
Right.
too late. Yeah.
Too late. Yeah. If they wanted to do that, any one of those 15 could have done it back in March or April. So it's kind of like pointless to even do it now because it's just pointless.
Yeah, Senator Paris noticed that the horse had escaped from the barns, so she went down to Home Depot and bought this great big padlock, and she came back and she locked that barn door up so tight.
Yeah, I love the way you put the analogies. But yeah, that's right. But the horse is out. Kind of late for that. So
let me try. Let me try that one again, our Fred. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Senator Paris discovered that the horse had escaped from the barn, so she took prompt, immediate action. She went down to Home Depot and bought this great big padlock, and she came back and padlocked that door tight. Yeah.
Did she put the food away too, so the horse won't get any of that?
Yeah, she closed the. She put a plank over the manger so the horse wouldn't get at any of the oats.
Oh wow! Well, that's a bold action.
Yes, sir.
So we need to put new people like Ken in and others. Do away with the rest because it's going to be a repeat. Simple. I don't know how else to put it.
Well, I'm surprised that one of our regular callers hasn't called here since you've mentioned his name about a dozen times, our Fred. You know which caller I'm referring to? Do you know Jose?
I do not.
Repeat.
Go.
You say it.
I don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. Repeat.
Yes, I don't know.
Okay, I'm sorry, Alfred. I'm having a little fun here with the new producer of Tall Tales here, Jose. Go ahead, Alfred.
Our Jose.
Mm-hmm. Our Jose.
So, I mean, if I don't know the other sound bites of the other senators, but I only know of one, which is that's the only one. You haven't made sound bites of the others. So.
Well, I do have a sound bite from the governor's director of communications. You want to hear that one?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, here it goes. That was it.
Yeah, I heard it loud and clear.
That was a Janella. I Janella'd myself.
Oh, you didn't even, we already know. You didn't have to say it.
Okay.
That was a lot. So, do we want to repeat? Do we want independence and cut SNAP and NEX and commissary and PUA funding? I don't think so. And we don't need a repeat. So there's my $1 in today's show. Thanks, Bob.
Well, I'm glad you called. You know, you didn't get to be our Fred for nothing, our Fred. So thanks a lot for calling.
Thanks, our Bob.
All
See
right.
you tomorrow.
Okay, and Jimmy, you've already had 2 rides on the Ferris wheel, so we're going to put you on the merry-go-round this time. So have fun.
Hello?
Hello.
Well, that's a little bit over the top, isn't it?
Well,
anyway, Ken Leandro, and no matter what he says, I'm still going to vote for him. I think he's a good man or a good person.
Yeah, they are a good person. We can't say he's a good man, but we can say they are a good person, right, Jimmy?
Can we still use names?
If they're not sexist or white supremacist, yeah.
Ken Leon Guerrero.
It's probably marginally sufficient.
His name's not sexist or racist. Anyway, I just quote him, and then I'll translate what he actually meant. He said of politicians with a family history of public service. Politicians with a family history of public service. And what he actually meant to say, hogs and friends racing to the public trough.
Yeah, you know, there used to be a guy out here named Conrad Stinson who used to self-deprecate by saying that he was just a country boy. And when it came time to talk about politicians, he knew exactly how it worked. He was wont to say, yeah, the biggest hog in the trough gets the most slop.
Yep. Hogs and friends racing for the public trough. This is Guam election. But still, I'm going to vote for Ken Leon Guerrero. I don't care if his name is sexist or racist. I'm still going to vote for him.
Yeah, well, you can vote for them. I think you're safe.
Why do you say that?
I think you're safe, but he won't be accused of being. He won't be accused of being racist or sexist if Jimmy comes out and says, "I'm voting for them."
Hey, you know how much it costs for an assassination in the Philippines?
I don't know if I even want to find out.
Go on YouTube. You can see.
Mm.
Assassination in the Philippines is about $100.
Wow.
You know how much child sex costs in the Philippines?
I'm sure I don't want to know. I don't want to be violating any laws here, Jimmy. And we're right up there at the end of the rainbow for today. So I'm really glad you got a chance to ride on the merry-go-round this time. See you tomorrow, Jimmy. Arrivederci, Jimmy. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Arrivederci.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Still moving. I'm Paul Stevens, Fox News. Tropical storm Isaias making a pass by Florida on Sunday, but sparing the Sunshine State from a direct hurricane force hit. As for what's ahead,
the tropical storm is located just east of the coast of east central Florida. It has maximum winds of 70 miles per hour, and it's forecast to move north-northwestward with a turn more to the northeast. It's going to bring it near the coast of South and North Carolina on Monday evening.
Senior hurricane specialist Daniel Brown of the National Hurricane Center. Tropical storm warning.